So welcome to tonight's meeting, or whatever you want to call it, Q&A with me. I'm Tim. I think everybody knows who I am. Uh, there's not going to be a lot of backstory or a lot of formality with this, hour or so or less that we spent together. I don't really know how long this is going to be tonight because it's the first one of these that I have done. This isn't a formal class. This is just more like a way to touch base with people, and if they're curious about asking me something, they can do it in this space. So thank you all for joining live, and I thought that I would start by kind of just guiding us through a simple meditation just to kind of slow us down and get us into the right headspace for anything else we discuss tonight. So if you aren't already comfortable, please make yourself comfortable. Physically, relax your body as best as you can in whatever space you're in. You're probably sitting down or lying down. And just physically relax as best as you can. Follow your breath if that helps you. If there's any part of your body that feels, particularly stressed, just start letting go of that tension as best as you can. What we're going to be doing here for the next few minutes is just relaxing our body in the most simple way possible, which is by not judging it and just letting go of any judgments towards our body or towards our thoughts. So the first thing to do is just to relax your body. And if you don't feel totally relaxed yet, that's okay. Just notice the physical feelings that are coming through your body right now. And try to give in to any sense of relaxation you have. You probably are starting to feel more relaxed and more at ease physically. And mentally, you might start feeling calmer as you do this exercise. So all that we're doing is relaxing. And what's so wonderful about this is that we can't do it wrong. When we just let go in the way we're letting go right now, we just physically relax as best as we can. And we stop paying attention to our thinking. We can't do that wrong. And we start to feel pretty good because physically we start feeling, more and more at ease, usually. So your thoughts, they might be calming down as well. You might be thinking seemingly more and more slowly. And you might feel a little bit more aligned with your body because your body is gradually becoming more and more loose, more and more relaxed. But the thoughts still may be there, and perhaps you have racing thoughts right now. Maybe your body is starting to ease up some, but your thinking is still kind of haywire and all over the place. And again, what's wonderful about this exercise is that that's allowed, and that's perfect. You don't have to do anything differently. So again, we're just easing into the present moment by physically relaxing as best as we can and not judging our thoughts as they come through our mind. We're not even trying really to let go of our thoughts. The thoughts are there, and if they are there, they're there, and that's okay. We're just physically relaxing into them. And what we often find is that when we relax in this way, the thoughts start to dissipate more quickly. So in other words, if we have a series of overwhelming thoughts and we're feeling kind of overwhelmed mentally, when we feel so physically relaxed, those thoughts start to not bother us as much. And so perhaps physically and mentally, you're starting to feel more and more calm. And again, I emphasize that if you're mentally still feeling like your thoughts are racing, that's perfectly okay. What's so nice is that when we do an exercise like this, there's nothing wrong with your thoughts racing. A lot of us have the idea that when we meditate or do a relaxation exercise, that our thoughts should just calm down and we should be this really still and quiet Buddha or saint, up on a hill. And to an outsider looking at us, because we're still and our body's physically relaxed, we might look like that person. But inwardly, the thoughts may be turning. There may be all this stuff going on, and you can pay attention to them if you want, but you don't have to. So again, this is just letting everything come and go and physically giving in to these nice feelings of I'm sitting down, I'm relaxing, I'm taking it easy, there's nothing to do, there's nothing I'm trying to do. I'm just letting my body relax. I'm letting my mind do what it does, which will inevitably make it feel at least a little bit more relaxed than it did prior, probably. But I'm putting all pressure I put on myself aside, and I'm just letting what's happening now happen. And when you do that, when you get into that for even just a couple minutes, and you can do this for a long time. We're not going to do it tonight, but you can do it for, 30, 40, 50 minutes or longer. When you do that, you start to recognize that those thoughts that are going through your head, that stress you might feel mentally, it's not something that stays the same. It's like it's just waves in the ocean, and there's the ocean the whole time. The ocean's always there. Or how the clouds may obscure the sun, but the sun's always there. In the same way, there's a deeper sense of abundance or physical peace, mental peace that we actually already have. And it often is obscured by our thinking. And when we do an exercise like this, a very simple exercise, we realize that we're okay as we are. That there's nothing that actually needs to be changed. And if we're patient and gentle with ourselves and are honest with ourselves, just by relaxing like this, we see that we're actually perfect as we are, just like this. Like the ocean or the sun, it's just there. We're just there. And it's not something we have to recognize or strive to recognize even. But when we do recognize it, we have a sense of fulfillment. And in my opinion, that fulfillment is the very definition of abundance, because we feel full of what we have. And likewise, from this place, we're very much in alignment with the ability to receive things easily, for our life to become more easy as we go about living it. Because we recognize the perfection that we already are, and things tend to match up to that perfection more easily. Now, to some people that might sound crazy, but I think if you're listening to this, you at least somewhat believe or see what I'm saying when I say that. So the perfection that we are is always there. And if we recognize that more, which we can do through many different, varieties of techniques or exercises, and what we can do right now by just relaxing our body physically and being at peace with our thoughts and relaxing into what we already have, when we recognize that abundance, we become one with what's around us, and also aware of something that gives us life and provides us with life, provides us with what we need usually, and often in the best way possible if we allow it to happen. So let's just close our eyes and just breathe into this for just a few moments. See, what you are is what you're looking for. You know, that's something that some of us probably have heard many times before. And it's true. Whenever we see that, whenever we feel really good from an internal standpoint, we realize that we're not lacking anything. What we were looking for externally is actually within us. And so this is a really interesting way to look at things because it's not how we usually do things. Even if we want to talk about something like manifesting or the law of attraction, so often we get caught up with, something externally we can get from quote unquote applying the law of attraction. Whether it's improve our health or improve our relationships or improve our finances, we're thinking about the external. But what we really want is what we're tapping into right now, which is this sense of fulfillment and abundance within us, which we already have. And in my experiences, the better that I can sense and align myself with that fulfillment and feeling good within and feeling like I am enough and that I don't need to seek out anything external to be fulfilled, the more I'm able to touch into that, the more easily external things do come to me. And when I have difficulty doing that and I'm focusing on the external because of any number of reasons, whether it's because I'm worried about what I have to do today or tomorrow, or there's a health issue I'm worried about, whether it's myself or someone I know, or a financial issue or a relationship issue. When I get too externally focused on those things, I lose touch of what I already am, that I already have what I need inside me on a deep level to fix things in the best, most harmonious way possible that I know of. So we can try not to forget that as much. And that's what this practice is about for me. Most of the stuff that I write, the guides that I edit and write are just about this. It's just about recognizing that we already have within us more than we can ever know rationally. And when we stop externally being so focused and consciously focused on the outer world and on changing things externally, and instead look within and become at peace with what we are within, our lives tend to get better. So that is, that's the exercise. And that, in my guide, The Joy of Not Thinking, the last part of that book, I have a section just talking about that. I call it vibing out in that book. And it's just that simple exercise. So it's just something you can explore if you want to. So yeah, if anybody has any questions, they are free to write them into the chat box or to unmute themselves and ask them right now. And if nobody has any questions, I will just continue talking for a little bit until I stop talking. Again, if you want to write something into the chat box, you just can write it on the bottom of the screen. There's a chat box and you can type into that. But right now it looks like there are no questions. Again, this is my first informal Zoom meeting that's not a class. So, I don't know how much commentary you guys want to provide. And it's fine if you don't want to provide any commentary, that's great. And it's fine if you want to provide a lot of commentary. But yeah, I think I'll just spend a couple minutes expanding upon what we just did, because a lot of questions I've gotten recently, and when I asked people via email about what they were interested in me answering, delved with specific techniques to manifest things faster. And I think it's worth it just to spend a few minutes talking about that, because it's something that it can be very confusing for us, because especially when we when we get interested in the law of attraction, but also when we get interested, maybe we've been into the law of attraction or manifesting for a long time, it can be perplexing why we can't get some of the techniques that we read about or hear about that we see work well for other people, when we can't seem to get them to work well for us. That can be tough. And it also can be tough when you read a book or listen to a book or see a video where there's a really interesting approach to the law of attraction, to manifesting, and you're genuinely interested in it, and you genuinely intellectually, rationally believe what they're saying, and yet when you try to apply the approach, you don't have a lot of success doing it. So and I've always seemed to get asked this question, what techniques do you suggest that we try to apply to better manifest things? And, especially after the exercise that we just did, I think that it gives more of a grounding to the response that I usually give. The response becomes somewhat obvious, or makes a lot more sense intuitively right away. And my answer is, there is no right technique. There is no best technique that's going to help you manifest. If someone's trying to tell you that this is the way to do it and the only way to do it, you really have to be reticent, because there's a lot of different ways to quote unquote manifest or to demonstrate something. And some techniques work extremely well for some people, and the same techniques don't work at all for other people. And so, I've read a lot about different LOA techniques, LOL techniques too, quite frankly. And all of them basically have their merits and are super interesting, but all that matters is whether you find that it works for you. And you might be thinking, well, I don't know if it works for me or not. Well, the best hint as to whether it works for you, whether a certain technique for manifesting something works for you, is if you feel good doing it. And that doesn't mean you're always going to be super happy or something like that while you try applying the technique, while you try to visualize or affirm or script or whatever you may be trying to do, but that you feel aligned. It feels like the right thing to do. Because in my experience, when people try to manifest things too hard, when they get too into a certain technique and try to apply it with all of their willpower, it invariably causes them to struggle somewhat. Now, sometimes they struggle so much with the technique that they give up, and at that point the technique sometimes works for them. But a lot of time, when we try too hard to visualize or to affirm or storyboard or whatever the heck it is we're doing, we get too invested in the technique, in the external, which is the technique, and we forget about the internal. It's the same thing as what we were just touching upon. The technique to manifest a certain thing is a tool. It's an external thing. It's not you. And what's important is what you are. And a good manifesting technique that works for you is going to tap in to what you are, to that natural sense of abundance and goodness and fulfillment that you already have within you, if you're able to tap into that, which a lot of people can through different techniques such as visualization or letting go or affirming or tapping or whatever it may be, if you're able to get aligned with the technique where it feels good inwardly while you're doing it in a deep way. Again, it's not always going to be joyful. Oh, I'm visualizing this is the greatest thing ever. It's not always going to be like that, but there's going to be a sense of this feels right. This feels like who I am. If you feel good doing the technique, in short, then that's the technique to use, or that's the technique to focus upon. Or, you know, you might have several techniques, but the techniques to focus upon are those that make you feel good and fulfilled and recognize what you are on the inside, in my opinion. And what's interesting is that if you forget about the techniques for the most part and just focus on feeling good on the inside like we just did, and do it in a genuine way, and just focus inwardly on feeling more relaxed and at peace on the inside more often, then you'll demonstrate and get more things that you want in your life anyway, without doing necessarily any specific manifesting technique. Because it's the inside that counts. How you feel on the inside, feeling good on the inside, feeling fulfilled on the inside. That's the deep part. That's what counts. That's what's really good. And that's what you already have. And the visualizing or the affirming or whatever it may be is just touching upon what you already have. Just like we did at the beginning of that exercise by vibing out. It's pretty fascinating in that way. And I found that if you're open to this information, if you're open to the law of attraction, where you believe, for instance, that your thoughts create your reality, if you believe in these principles of your imagination being an incredibly dominant faculty that you have, if you believe in the power of affirmation, in declaring, if you actually believe in that stuff intellectually, that's a big step in of itself, because most of the population doesn't have that. So what I'm saying is, if you believe in the law of attraction, but find that there's no specific technique that always works for you, or that, you know, a lot of these techniques tend to bog you down, but you still believe in the law of attraction nonetheless, then guess what? Just focus on feeling good on the inside. Skip all the techniques, except for those that make you feel good a lot of the time. You can focus just on inwardly feeling good more often, feeling at peace with what you already are. If you just focus on that and become that more often, then you will manifest more of what you want. So I hope that is making some sense to you, because it's something that I get asked a lot. And the truth of the matter is that the techniques don't really matter. I mean, if they work, they work. And in my opinion, almost all of them work. You know, when I read about a certain technique and it worked for someone to get them whatever they wanted, you know, whatever it was they wanted, whether it was, again, health, better relationships, or money, it's usually one of those three things. If it got them that, then it worked for them. It works, right? But it's the inner stuff, the inner work, that really matters. And there's these various techniques that have been proven to work for a lot of different people. Like, you know, visualization, affirmations, those have been proven time and time again. They're a very, you know, steady technique that works for a lot of people. But you can be doing a very bizarre LOA technique, and it might work better for you than any of that stuff. Or you can just be aware of all this information and believe in the creativity of your mind, the power of your imagination and not formally practice any technique, and this stuff will still work for you in beautiful ways. Because when I talk about feeling good and recognizing your abundance more often, I want to make it very clear that's not a technique in reality. All right, that's not what I'm not teaching you a technique. I don't teach techniques. The exercise at the beginning of this, we could call that a technique, I guess, but what it's pointing at is not a technique. You know, it's just a way to tap into what you already are. So this is like supplemental information in regards to the law of attraction, in regards to, you know, generating abundance. I don't consider myself someone who actually is a law of attraction teacher. I'm someone who can maybe counsel you a little bit if you want advice for how to become more aligned with feeling good within, which will then enable you to utilize the law of attraction more. But really, all we're trying to do is feel good within. And again, to be a broken record, because that is what I am. You feel good within, better stuff tends to happen to you. I hope that resonates. And it's something that I remind myself of every day. It's not necessarily, or for most of us, it's not like, you know, you hear it once and that's it. It's something that you remind yourself over and over again. I am enough. You know, I feel good. I am abundant. Literally, I am enough. You know, it's so powerful if we're able to access that within us, and we can do it more easily than we think. But there's no formal technique or one way to do it. So I hope that that's clear. Just looking here, I wrote down a few more questions or notes that people had. So, yeah, I mean, I just would like to emphasize that there's no practice or any pressure you have to put on yourself to try to feel better, because you want to feel better already. And so if you think about it that way, then you have to wonder, why do you put so much pressure on yourself sometimes to get external results? We're obsessed with external results, and I get it. People want, you know, they want to live a better life. They think that having a bigger house or having more money is going to be more fulfilling. And in many ways, it might be more fulfilling for you, but it will be more fulfilling because inwardly you will change and feel more fulfilled. The external stuff we want is often an excuse for looking within and realizing that what we have within us, we are not accessing as much as we would like. You know, the best teachers that I've met, either, you know, in person or via books or videos or whatever, the common trait between those people usually is that they feel very comfortable being what they are. They're not looking to like dramatically change things usually. They're very comfortable just sitting or being what they are. But it doesn't sound quite as glamorous as manifesting the big house, you know, or the perfect wife or the perfect husband or the perfect job, $1 million, da 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 da. When you look within, interesting things happen. And you see that you can deceive yourself by believing that you need this, this, and that. Because most of the stuff that we believe that we need, turns out we don't really need it. Or that if we really need it, we'll get it when we need it. And that might sound callous, but in my experience, it's usually true. So again, these perspectives are just not things that we often hear. And so we need to remind ourselves of it again and again. A good way to remind ourselves of it, besides doing the techniques or practices that we like to do that make us feel good, is just to read perspectives that are similar to what we're talking about right now, whether it be books or listening to audio of teachers who are speaking along similar lines and saying things that resonate with you in the same way as we're talking about, or whether it be part perhaps of a group, whether it be like an online group or a prayer group or whatever it may be, that aligns with that sense of peace being within you right now. Personally, I find that besides doing techniques that I like to do, the main technique that I like to do for this stuff, I shared with you at the beginning of this video. It's that meditation exercise, or whatever you want to call it, vibing out. But besides those techniques that we like, it's I find that reading, like I like reading spiritual teachers, law of attraction teachers that I can resonate with, that are talking about this stuff from the same perspective. Like, in case you can't tell, I don't spend a lot of time focusing on law of attraction teachers who are talking about how to manifest $1 million next year. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just I'm going about it in a different way, personally, in my life. And you guys probably already know some of my favorite teachers. Neville Goddard, Emil Coué, H. Emily Cady, Richard Dotz, Lester Levinson, people like that. They're coming from a very inner place most of the time. And then a lot of the time I find myself not even reading or listening to law of attraction or manifesting teachers. I listen to people like Byron Katie, for instance, because Byron Katie's a great teacher of manifesting too. Just she's talking about it in a much more inner level. But if you want to read a great book, if you haven't already, 1,000 Names for Joy by Byron Katie, that is that book's all about manifesting in a way. It's just inward manifesting. That's a deep, deep book. So, hearing and reading different perspectives like that I really respect and resonate with, as well as other perspectives that I just find or happen to come across or explore, that helps me just remember that I have what I want, and that I just have a tendency to forget it, and it helps me maybe forget it a little bit less. So yeah, I recommend finding teachers or groups, like I said, prayer groups or online groups that talk about this stuff. If it resonates with you in any way, do it. Surround yourself, whether it's through teachings or whether it's through groups or whatever it may be. Surround yourself with stuff that talks about this, because when you turn on the news or when you talk to your friends or family, most of the time they're not going to be coming at it from this angle, and that's totally fine. But you do want to hear some stuff from this angle, probably. So yeah, let me see what time it is. We've been going for about 35 minutes. This is just cranking, man. Monologuing is unbelievable. Yeah, if anybody has any questions, that feel free to ask them now. Otherwise, I'm gonna wind this up with another meditation exercise in a few minutes, and that will be it. Obviously, feel free, if you have a question later on, to just contact me via the radicalcounselor.com website or info@radicalcounselor.com. I like to, what I really like to do is respond to people individually. That's, the work I like to do with people most of the time. It's on a one-on-one basis, which is why I refrain from stuff like this a lot of the time, group meetings, because everyone's different. And your uniqueness, my uniqueness, all of our uniqueness, it should be celebrated. It shouldn't be decried because, we don't all fit into the same, the same box. There's different answers for every person. And I always like to tell people that, if I have 20 main points that I make tonight or at any time, maybe 2 or 3 of those really hit home for you, and the other 15 or 17 or 18 or whatever missed the point. So just forget those other 17 or 18 and just take the 2 or 3 that work. It's the same for any teaching, 80-20 rule, or the 95-5 rule, or the 98-2 rule. Most of the stuff you hear is not actually going to be relevant to your life. But the few things that are really relevant, take that. And in my experiences, you get better with practice at going through the crap so it doesn't bother you as much as it once did. For instance, I can look at a book now, not by one of the people that I just mentioned, and it could be a 200-page book, and I can go through it a lot faster than I used to, and I can take the good from it much more easily than I used to, and I can, more importantly, drop the crap from the book much faster than I used to think. And part of the reason for that is practice, and also just a total irreverence for anybody have any idea of what the heck they're actually talking about. The older you get, the more apprehensive you should get in many ways of people telling you stuff, including me. And you should just go with what resonates in your heart, which is really all that we're talking about tonight, is finding that way to touch what you already are. And the words I'm using, how I'm describing it, might not really be the words you would use, but what I'm getting at, hopefully, it is touching you in some way. This is heart-to-heart communication. But when I say we're all full of crap, I just mean that when we use words, when we intellectualize, we have a tendency to get off track really quickly. So, take the one good thing out of 5 or the one good thing out of 10 that works for you and build upon that. And then find your next thing, and then your next thing. And it makes things easier. It makes it easier to access this abundance that you already are. Any other any thoughts or anything like that? Otherwise, I think we'll just. Yes, Bear. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you're okay with comments and not questions?
Absolutely.
Awesome. First of all, thank you for doing this. It is such a hoot to meet you. I have so many books that your name is on, Neville books, where you've translated his thoughts. It's just, I thank you for doing this, and
My pleasure.
I love your approach. You mentioned it. I'm not a law of a what typically is thought of as a law of attraction teacher. How to get this right? It seems like a much more spiritual approach. What I learned from you and the books and the Neville books that you co-wrote, a couple of things that really shifted for me was seeing the law of attraction as more descriptive rather than prescriptive. It's not something
That's a great way to look at it.
Not something to do, but explaining. Here's why you might be seeing what you have in your life, right? Which doesn't mean now you turn it around and do something else. And then it took me a long time to make the shift from thinking I was needing to create abundance rather than what I come to realize is telling the truth, embracing the truth that abundance is already here. And to me, that's the law of attraction, is telling the truth about what is. Not that abundance is here, but that I'm part of it, right? Because I'm all part of everything. So, you know, just feeling the abundance that's here, rather than I'll feel abundant when that thing comes. So you've been a part of my journey and in appreciation, in deepening my appreciation and understanding of law of attraction. Neville is so friggin' awesome, and I love how you translate and add to him. And this is great to be able to be here with you. I hope you do some more.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that, Barry. That's I love to hear that, because that's definitely why we do something like tonight. And I love to hear that feedback, because
Sure.
that's definitely the approach we're talking about, where yeah, we're not looking at this as just as a way to get stuff. Again, we just keep on stating the same thing over and over again. And the reason I love Neville so much is because I really think that that's what he was all about. He was obviously a very spiritual person. And I still don't understand at all why nobody really, I know that in metaphysical circles, he's very well known, but he is very neglected. I would put it that way. And
Yeah. Except for people that discover him, and then he has like a cult following.
well, that's the issue, where I try to find a little bit of common ground personally with my work, you know, the stuff I wrote about him, just because I only saw the two different, either people knew nothing about him or he's just like a afterthought of New Thought history, or people are really into him.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. But personally, I don't get that either at all. That's I love Neville, and I love his teachings, but for me, they're all part of the same thing that we're talking about. And it's trying to touch into, as you said, that it's not something out there, it's something within us. And again, that's the whole practice. If you want to call it the law of attraction, if you want to call it just your spiritual practice, whatever it is, it's recognizing that it's us, that if we want to quote unquote change something, we want to change the recognition we have of ourselves, so we realize that we are okay already. And if we do that, things tend to work out better externally as well. And again, it's not an overnight process. And quite frankly, it's not usually a few month process or a few year process. It is a lifetime process of recognition. And, you know, an issue with a lot of law of attraction stuff is they make it seem like it's going to be a quick fix. And it can be. There are exceptions, and there, certainly for getting external things, it can be quick. You know, you can manifest $10,000 very quickly, or, you know, or improve your health very quickly some of the time. And a lot of the time, you know, people can't do that. The majority of the time, people can't do that. And that's what a lot of law of attraction teachers don't like to talk about. But the way we're approaching it here is something that's meant as a lifetime practice, and it should be a joyful practice. Because it's being comfortable being who you are. So you don't have a choice. You're going to be who you are until you are no more. So you might as well be as comfortable as you can be being who you are. So, yeah.
The thing that I suspect with the things, how it works sometimes and doesn't work sometimes, seemingly,
Mm-hmm.
I'm imagining that a lot of times when it quote works, it's the opposite of it's not that, oh, my law of attraction technique worked, but something showed up in spite of my law of attraction.
I love
right?
that. Yeah,
Because
yeah.
trying to control is the opposite of allowing, right? And so much of what my past techniques were really try to control. I control myself into a resonance, or control into this. And even though it seemed like I was doing the right thing, getting in the space to receive, the foundation was one of control, right? Even not necessarily the outside world, but me, my resonance, to get something. And so my point, I'm sorry if I'm rambling, but I think sometimes when people are ascribing success to the thing that actually gets in the way as much as as anything else. Are you related?
Oh, totally. And you're not rambling at all. Or
Yeah.
rather, I should say that's all that any of us do is ramble. Of course. I mean, that generally is my take. I mean, obviously, someone like Neville has some very specific suggestions for getting your imagination, for quote unquote controlling your imagination. But I think that that's kind of a superficial, not superficial, but just a very simplistic take on what he's actually saying, where to control your imagination takes a certain amount of surrender and letting go. And it's all part of that process. A lot of the, it's hard to even manifesting teachers like that I like Richard Dotz or David Hawkins or Lester Levinson. They're all talking about you have to give up this external idea of getting anything, and once you let go of that technique, the technique, as you're just saying there, is what's hindering you. If you're able to actually let go of that technique, even if it's for a very short period of time, you drop the technique, you drop the pressure, oh my gosh, all of a sudden that thing might show up. And I've certainly found that tends to be the case in my life. When I press for something too hard, I never get it the way that I intended to, you know what I mean? And when I just kind of am easygoing about it, it tends to float my way much more easily.
I don't know if you've done this. I certainly have. See if I can explain it. The technique of not wanting something so that I'll get something.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Right. It's a secret agenda.
Right. And we think we're so crafty, this is like how, this is how it works. Exactly. And again, that's why just being with your thoughts and seeing how they go and just relaxing into that, not an easy thing to necessarily do, because you realize how insane our thinking is a lot of the time in terms of what it's clamoring for something and pretending it's not clamoring. It's like like the elephant that got into the pantry or something like that, and it thinks it's being it's a disaster, like in terms of how our thinking can go haywire as quickly as it can, at least for a lot of us. Okay, I'm not saying it's necessarily like that for everybody listening in on this, but my thing is, how do you come to peace with that and not allow that to bother you in the same way? And if you're able to come to peace with that monkey mind, as the Buddhists call it, or whatever, you will find, I have found at least, that if you come to peace with it, that the monkey mind then starts showing different colors and kind of calming down more, and you're able to work with it more and be more aligned with all that wildness that's going on consciously. Because you know what? It doesn't mean anything in the way that we think it means something. If we want to get deep, I don't know if we want to touch on this tonight, but my philosophy a lot of the time is that, I mean, I like to look at it like stuff doesn't mean anything. And if you look at things that way, that sounds very atheistic to some people, and very, just doesn't seem moral or something. But in my opinion, if you look at your life that way, it makes you a very responsible person, and it makes you much more in tune and okay with what happens. But I've always kind of felt that way. That's always been my philosophy, well before I got into the law of attraction and stuff like that. But it's an interesting approach. Don't judge yourself or think there's going to be all these repercussions because you're doing something. I don't know. It doesn't matter what you do. You know what I mean? If you're not worried about what you're doing, you're probably not doing anything that bad. So, yeah,
Can I make one more comment? I don't want to, I know
please.
we got to
No, no,
go.
that's what this is for. And you're not, please, do not think for a second that you're rambling on. You're making some great points.
Cool. Just just love reading Neville. It's not boring. It's not, I mean, I just love the experience, which is rare for me to like enjoy. And I got confused by him, what seemed like a contradiction, because what I really enjoyed was him saying, you know, the whole thing, I am, right? I am what I think I want. And the message of just understanding that you have what you think you want. You are what you think you want.
Yeah.
And then he'd go into this thing where he's talking to the people about getting stuff, you know, the people in the audience, and imagine what it'll feel like when you have this thing. And I thought, well, wait a minute, now he's going into the, and it seemed to contradict his larger, more spiritual approach. And what I was talking to a friend, and this is, maybe you could comment on it, I came to peace with it. A buddy of mine said, look, it was in the 50s, the 60s, whenever it was, and he had to put butts in the seats. And that's kind of where they were. That's what they obviously, a part of them heard the bigger message.
Right.
But here's how you're going to feel good when you get that thing, so use that. That was just meeting them where they were at the time, even though it seemed to be a contradiction of the larger, you already have what.
Yeah.
Any comment? Did it ever occur to you too that he was playing both sides there?
Yeah, I mean, this probably isn't, I could go on about this for a while. But I don't think, so first of all, I will say it's, as we just touched upon before, either people don't know about Neville, or people have a cult like obsession with him, it seems like.
Yeah.
And the middle ground is where there's a lot of value. So in my opinion, which a lot of people are going to disagree with, what I'm saying is my opinions about Neville, a lot of people are going to disagree with that are into him. So in my opinion, he's one of my favorite teachers. That pretty much goes without saying. Certainly one of my favorite law of attraction teachers. But I totally disagree with a ton of what he says.
Yeah. Okay.
And I don't actually have a huge issue with him talking about that deep, what you inherently are, what I am, I am this, I am God, I am God. Okay. That's,
right. Yeah.
And then bringing that external thing in, because what I actually love about that is there's a certain practicality
right.
to it. That's just like, there's this pragmatic aspect. And that's actually probably, I mean, there was a lot of stuff that initially drew me into Neville, but I think there was this pragmatic quality where it was like, it's like, well, I have to feed my family, I have to pay my rent next month, I have to make sure I'm healthy, stuff like this. I was like, wow, that's really cool. He's really he's talking about how you can solve practical issues,
right.
in a quote unquote spiritual way.
Right. Right.
And so what was so impressive for me, and I'm just sharing my experience because I think other people might have similar experiences or similar perspectives. What was so impressive for me is this guy was clearly a spiritual dude. Like, he was clearly into living a spiritual life, a godly life, being aligned with, source, or whatever you want to call it. And at the same time, he was saying, this is how you can get by. Like, for me, it was like, holy cow. Like, before I found Neville, like, I was searching for something like this because I had a, like a spiritual artsy background. Money was always a struggle for me, the concept of money. And he went a long part in solving that. because he's like, you know, this is how you can practically solve that.
Yeah.
And it was like, and it's like, he gave me so much power in that way. And in the same, he said, you know, take responsibility and your imagination will take care of the rest if you get into this. So I loved that practical aspect. So when he spoke about getting, getting better health, getting the better job, whatever it may be, I do think a lot of it, most of the time, was coming from that place of, this is pragmatically what you might have to do. Now, my biggest issue with Neville is, and I've mentioned this in other places, is that, you know, when he had his promise experience in the late 50s, he totally changed his teaching to reflect his these spiritual experiences he had. And I have no problem with his interpretation of his spiritual experiences. But at the same time, I don't think the promise and his subjective personal spiritual experiences have anything to do with his earlier teachings, with the law, or whatever you want to call it. All of, you know, Neville's teachings pretty much before 1959 or thereabouts are very different and very pragmatically based in the spiritual basis of you know, you create your own reality. You know, you are God, your imagination is God, and you can just go live your life this way. The promise and the stuff, you know, post 1959, I mean, this is going to piss off all the Neville people, but to me, it's gobbledygook, you know. It's you know, I get it from his own personal background, how it was so powerful for him, but, you know, come on, man, you know, I mean, it's that's not the kind of stuff that, I don't know, it just wasn't spiritually relevant to me. And there's a lot of other spiritual teachers whose experiences I value more than Neville's, particularly, you know, with his later stuff. So
Cool.
yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. I don't know if I've read any of the post.
Well, like the law and the promise is the law and the promise is a good book. Obviously, it's a great book because there's so many examples of the law in it. But the promise is, you know, part of that book. And then all of his teachings in the 60s and early 70s, which are, you know, everywhere on the internet and on YouTube, which is how a lot of people find out about Neville. They're like hardly relevant to the early stuff, in my opinion. The stuff from like the late 30s until the late 50s is vastly superior, in my opinion. Again, this is just my opinion. But yeah.
Oh, now you have me excited to go figure out. I haven't been, I mean, I read Wikipedia or something about him, and I recall hearing that there was a lot of people apparently have a problem with where he went in later life. You're not the only.
Not enough. Probably
But
one reason he's not more famous today is because of his latter years. And again, from a spiritual perspective, I thought that's great. Like I think became, it sounds like, I'm just speculating, he became more at peace being what he was, like what we were talking about. He had a great personal spiritual experience. But then the thing is, he tried to apply that experience to everybody. So this is the plan or something like that. And I mean, come on, you know. So.
Well, I'd like to go back now and look at all the stuff I've read and see where it fell into that chronological order. And I'm imagining most of it was pre, but I don't know.
In all likelihood, the books are mainly pre. Yeah,
okay.
And this is, you know, again, we will be recording this, so, you know, I hope that other people get to hear this, because I've written about it and touched upon it in places, but it's something worth thinking about with Neville, because it's just not out in the open enough. That the pre-promise and post-promise stuff is two very different teachings. So I'm glad that we got to touch upon that there.
Yeah,
for sure.
I'll let you get back to you. This was great though. I really enjoyed it, and thanks again. I'm going to hang on for the rest of it, but I'll give other people a chance to.
Sure. Well, thank you again for your great, great feedback and questions.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, if anyone else, it doesn't look like anyone else has anything to say. So yeah, this is good. Let's just end again. Let's just do this quote unquote vibing out technique one more time. And let me sell something first. That'll be fun. No, my guy last year, the joy of not thinking. The vibing out technique is the last thing mentioned. And I will say for stress reduction, which does directly correlate into the law of attraction, and really, which is what I look at as what I do, is I deal with stress reduction and how it relates to the law of attraction in most of my books. The joy of not thinking, there's two other things I go over that I think are very useful for people and that are underutilized. I'm going to just briefly touch upon them, and then we'll do a little short meditation to the end. The first one is be playful with your body. If you're physically playful, if you 100% get into something playfully, you will feel better very quickly. Within a few minutes, you emotionally will feel better. Your thoughts won't be bothering you as much. Now, what the heck do I mean by that? I'm not going to explain that right now. All I would say is if you go to stopbeingserious.com, stopbeingserious.com, there's a bunch of free videos on there of me showing you how to do it. Okay, if you're playful, you will see the results really quickly. It's one of the best stress reduction exercises that I have ever found, and I've tried many of them. The second thing in that book that's interesting is talking out loud to yourself. In the law of attraction, we always hear people talking or speaking, or we always hear people discussing in the law of attraction in the manifesting circles about affirmations and self-talk and all this other stuff. Probably my favorite LOA teacher, if you want to call him an LOA teacher, Emil Coué, autosuggestion, which is basically speaking to yourself. What people don't realize is that when you talk out loud to yourself, it's different than talk. It's the self-talk we do within. Okay, so we have a tendency to get bogged down by our inner voice. We become overly critical. Our thoughts become self-critical very quickly. But when we speak out loud to ourselves, when we're alone, our outer voice and how we're speaking to ourselves out loud can neutralize that inner criticism that we often have running. So in other words, our inner self-talk, when it's negative, can be mitigated and can actually be sometimes turned completely into joyful inner self-talk by speaking out loud to ourselves. So in other words, if I feel like crap and I want to feel better, I can be like, Tim, you feel like crap right now. I'm going to talk out loud to myself until I feel better. And then I can speak out loud to myself in whatever way I like. I can talk to myself out loud kindly. I can talk out loud to myself angrily, being like, Tim, why the heck are you acting like such an idiot? I might use more choice words than that. I can talk out loud to myself lovingly, or, like a friend would speak to somebody. I can talk out loud to myself in any number of ways. And that out loud self-talk to myself, if I'm being honest with myself, if I'm speaking out loud from the heart to myself, that out loud self-talk will change the inner self-talk, neutralize it, and will make you feel better if you're feeling down in the dumps. So being playful is a very good way to reduce your stress, and speaking out loud to yourself is a very good way to reduce your stress. And once your stress is down, a very good way to become comfortable being what you are is to do the meditation exercise, vibing out, that we did at the beginning of this video, and that we're just going to do for a minute or two now. So yeah, let's just close our eyes, relax our bodies. Again, the key here is just to relax our body physically. Our body might still have some issues. We might still feel some pain or some stress from the day, some tension from the day, but guess what? It doesn't matter. We just sit down or lie down and we relax our body as best as we can. we give into these pleasant feelings of just being relaxed. It's like, just think about at the end of a busy day where you worked hard, just crashing onto that bed and just lying down and just sinking into that pillow, sinking into that, sinking into the mattress. We relax our body, and that's it. As I say in that Joy in Love Thinking book, what's great about this exercise is you can't screw it up. You only screw it up if you think about it, if you think you're screwing it up. But if you don't think you're screwing it up, you're not screwing it up. Just relax your body as best you can. And once your body starts relaxing, as it will get more relaxed. Then you probably will start noticing your thoughts more. Maybe your monkey mind's going. And guess what? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Just relax. Relax. What we're touching on is the deeper part of ourselves. Again, this is the part of us that we're relaxing into, that's always there. Just like the sun is always there, even if there's clouds. It's just so simple, and it's something that at the same time we don't recognize as much as we can, so we can choose to recognize it more. This is not special. This is like normal. I would conjecture that people centuries ago, maybe millennia ago, probably did this a lot more than we do it now. This is sinking into what you are, sinking into the abundance all around you, which is you. Just relax your body and be. Your thoughts don't matter. And again, you can do this for a couple minutes. You can do this at the beginning of the morning, or in the middle of the day, or in the evening. And you can also do it for much longer. You can do it for 30 minutes or 40 minutes or an hour. Just do it in whatever way you want. Something just to experiment with. And the good news is you don't have to do it. So just relax and be what you are. And that's enough.